diamond is going to be your gemstone for April. And like we talked about before, you're not stuck with just a white, clear gemstone if you're born in April. You don't have to worry about just a diamond. It could be a yellow diamond. We just made up a ring for someone. They wanted a chocolate-colored princess cut diamond. We had that for them. We have blues, we have pink, we have green, we have red, and these have been color enhanced so that they're not as expensive as if it was a genuine colored diamond. But it's still a diamond and it's still colored. So, you don't have to worry about just being stuck with that one white color anymore. Now, May is emerald. And, one of the things that the characteristic of a person who's born in May is that they're happy. They're usually a happy-go-lucky type of person. And the characteristic of the gemstone to enhance that person is that it helps their fertility. So, if you guys have been trying to have a baby or something, hey, you may want to give her a piece of emerald jewelry. It certainly could help. It can't hurt. Heck. And if they were born in May, then emerald is their birthstone. Most emeralds are going to come from Colombia, but now we have a lot of them that we've gotten in from Africa. African emeralds seem to be a darker, richer color than a lot of the Colombian stuff. Much less expensive. We get in the same dark green coloration of emeralds from Colombia as an African, or when it was done in Zaire or Botswana. We find that it's a much, much more expensive gemstone because that dark, rich green is a very rare color when we get into the Colombian emeralds. How do we tell where it's from? No, not by its accent. We look at internal characteristics of it. And if you happen to see little black dots inside of that emerald, that's going to tell us that it's probably, it could be Brazilian, it could be a type of African emerald. If we find what we look for, we call them gardens on the inside of an emerald. These are little lines and things, and these are the growth lines inside of an emerald. If you don't find any of them in an emerald, sometimes it can either be a synthetic, or if it's a genuine, and we're sure it's genuine and it has very few growth lines in it or very little gardens, it becomes a much more expensive gemstone, especially if it's a nice dark green. Now, June, the birthstone for that, they ran around and we're running out of birthstones to try and figure out for June. So they used the birthstone moonstone, which is sort of a clear, grayish colored stone, and it has almost like an inner light that comes out of it. It's kind of a really cool looking gemstone. We also have the stone alexandrite, which originally came from Russia, and the Tsar of Russia's name was Tsar Alexander. They mined as many of these gemstones from the mines as they possibly could, and then they blew up the mines back in the early 1900s. The reason being to make these gemstones even more precious. And alexandrites exhibit color change. Under one light, they'll be sort of a purplish color, and under another light, they'll be sort of a green color. The more coloration, the more distinction between the color change, the more expensive that gemstone becomes. The less internal characteristics or inclusions inside that stone, again, that helps the value of the stone. A 1 carat genuine alexandrite with a nice color change could be as much as $5,000 to $10,000. So colored gemstones aren't always inexpensive. Some of these are very, very rare. Now, another gemstone that they've used for June is pearl. And we don't think of pearl as being a gemstone, but it's naturally created through oysters. Man's learned how to cultivate the oysters and do cultured pearls, but this is also a gemstone. And the attribute of pearl, or the stones that go with June, would be purity. July is the gemstone ruby. And ruby's been a popular gemstone for years and years. One thing that was always attributed to that was nobility, because a lot of nobility wore rubies. And the characteristic of the person is beauty. So, you know, if someone was born in July and they're beautiful, the ruby would be their gemstone, and it would be one of their characteristics. Now, ruby generally is going to be everything in shades of color from a light pink, which would be a much less expensive stone, to what we call pigeon blood red. And I don't know that I've ever seen a pigeon bleeding, but I guess if I did, their blood would be a bright reddish color. And this is how they've attributed the color to ruby. If you see one that's a pigeon blood red, or a nice bright red stone, this is going to be the top color when it comes to a ruby. Most of the other rubies you'll see have a little bit of a brownish tinge to them, a little bit of a purplish tinge. This is going to affect their value and make it a little less expensive. So lots of times when you're looking at a couple of rings and you can't figure out, you know, why is this one with this pink colored stone $125, and this one with the same size stone, but it's a nice bright red, $700. Well, that's because of the coloration, the saturation of color in that particular ruby. Now again, we've talked about enhancing stones. Ruby is a stone that they've learned how to enhance. Generally, rubies will have a lot of internal characteristics when they're formed, almost like cracks. Well, what they do is they boil those rubies in molten glass. That glass will fill in the inclusions where there's little cracks in the ruby and make it look beautiful. Is it still a ruby? Of course it's still a ruby. You can get a much larger ruby for a fraction of the price once it's been enhanced. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes a beautiful piece of jewelry. I've got some enhanced rubies at the shop. We keep them loose so that we can produce pieces of jewelry for someone who wants a large ruby without having to spend a lot of money. So if ruby is something that you may be interested in, stop in and ask me about them. I'll be more than happy to show those to you.